All right, then we can go ahead and get started. Welcome to episode 3 of 638 Sports Talk. I am Alex. I am happy to be rejoined by Matt Hartman and live from just outside the NBA bubble, Ethan Curtis. And then, is that a bird? Is it a plane? Nope, it's hashtag just Jason.
Thanks
Welcome.
for having me.
What's up, boys? How we doing tonight?
Good to be back. There's no basketball today, so it's like it's weird so far.
You're telling me I actually didn't have to work today. It was amazing.
So you're fixing the games, right? You know, like you're telling Silver who's going to win each game, what the score is going to be.
I sprinkled magic fairy dust on TJ Warren's jersey.
Isn't that fairy dust expires going into the playoffs, right?
It expired before the first game against the Heat. Don't you worry.
Got it.
All right. So tonight we're going to be having a little NBA playoff preview. Before the show, the four of us met and we collectively combined our large basketball knowledge, and we have come up with a group playoff bracket, which we will slowly reveal throughout the show. So just because we moved somebody on in the bracket as a group doesn't mean necessarily everybody agreed. So everyone will get a chance to share their takes on each series. But before we get into the bracket, I want everyone to go and share one thing they're looking forward to through this playoffs as a whole. And let's have Ethan kick us off.
Well, I'm curious to see if we see a lot of those stars from the bubble who performed really well carry into the postseason. Of course, Dame Lillard, one of those guys. James Harden, who had an incredible bubble. He's going to be shorthanded without Russell Westbrook for who knows exactly how long. So like I just mentioned, TJ Warren as well. So maybe guys like that who truly excelled in the bubble. Let's see if that'll carry on under the pressure of the playoffs.
All right, Jason.
I guess what I'm looking most forward to is actually like the lower seeded West teams. I mean, we got the Trailblazers, who I think are a dark horse and honestly like a pretty good team to dethrone the Lakers. I mean, you got Dame time. You got Melo back in the playoffs. You know, like he's playing at the small forward position now. That's his natural position, so he could go off. I mean, like it's gonna be a great matchup between him and LeBron. And then I'm also interested to see like the Jazz. I don't know if you guys saw, but Mike Conley just left the bubble for the birth of his son, and maybe he'll be back in time for the playoffs. Maybe the Nuggets will go up 3-0 before he's able to get back and it gets through quarantine. I don't know what the situation would be, what the NBA is going to do about that, but it'll be interesting to see what these lower seeded West teams, who are pretty good teams, even though they're lower seeded, can do to these the higher seeded teams.
All right, Maddie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm most looking forward to actually watching it with friends instead of at home. I'm going up to Gainesville this week. I know most of us are starting to get up too, so we'll be able to watch the playoffs together, unlike by ourselves at home. I'm also looking forward to see a lot of these. What's that?
Unlike most years.
Well, usually we watch Yeah, it is in June. Yeah.
June.
I'm also looking forward to seeing a lot of these young teams perform. Some teams that I like that are younger: Boston, the Thunder, and even Milwaukee's pretty young, other than the Lopez brothers. But I'm excited to see what these teams bring, because some of these teams underperformed in the bubble, we might think. But I want to see how some of these teams carry on into postseason.
All right, and one thing I'm looking forward to is what effect the lack of home court is going to have. You know, that's a big thing. You know, the home team worked all season to try to get, the top 4 seed, play that extra game at home, or in the case of the Bucks and the Lakers, the top seed in the conference. For example, the Heat kind of just mailed it in the last few games because they knew they were going to be the 4 or the 5 seed, and home court doesn't matter anymore. So we'll see if the Sixers, for example, very good home team, very poor away from home, are they going to be able to counteract that? This bubble environment's unique for everyone, and I don't know if 8 games has given us a large enough sample size to see, and I think the playoffs definitely will.
One thing that I just want to add before we get into the things, I think, and obviously and this is generally speaking, but I think every team is really playoff ready. And what I mean by that is, even though stars weren't necessarily playing the end of the season, there were no cupcake games throughout the bubble. You saw, I mean, obviously there were some teams that were better than others, but teams were matched up against higher seeded teams throughout the entirety of this 8-game stretch. So I do think that a lot of these guys and a lot of these teams are really ready for playoff action.
All right, and let's hop right into that playoff action. Let's start with the Eastern Conference first round. Number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks, best record in the NBA. They did not look great in the bubble, and they're going up against the de facto home team, the 8 seed Orlando Magic. Maddie, what do you think is going to take place in this series?
All right, so we got possible back-to-back MVP Giannis here. We have Chris Middleton, who's in that last game without Giannis. I mean, seemed like he can still shoot the ball. They got their full team back pretty much. Eric Bledsoe is healthy. I have Milwaukee winning in 4. Orlando is a decent team. I just don't think they have enough talent to match Giannis and Middleton. Their point guards are much weaker than Bledsoe and George Hill. The only matchup I could see them being more proficient in is the center with Vucevic over Brook Lopez, but Lopez has shot the ball a ton this season. Is definitely looking a lot better than he has in the past year. So I think it should be an easy sweep from Milwaukee here, 4-0.
Jason, agree, disagree?
I'd have to agree with Maddie. I mean, the Magic, yeah, they're the 8th seed, but also the 8th seed in the East is not the same thing as the 8th seed in the West, as we've seen. And the Bucks are the best team in the NBA, so I think it's going to be a pretty easy sweep. Yeah, like Maddie said, like Vucevic probably going to win the battle over Brook, but I still think Brook can defend Vucevic enough to like keep him like calmer than usual. And I don't really see the Magic have anybody else to pull their weight because like Jonathan Isaacs is out. So I mean, the Magic really I feel like are kind of just they are the 8th seed. You know, they really are an 8th seed, and I think that Milwaukee's really gonna have their way with them.
Ethan?
Yeah, I mean, no disagreements here. I mean, Bucks, great team. Giannis probably going to be back-to-back MVP, and I think the real test for Milwaukee is going to start in the second round.
I'm on the same page. Bucks in 4, clean sweep. They'll shake. Magic are a great opportunity for them to shake off any rust they pose. No threat. Giannis, if he has to, could single-handedly beat the Magic. So let's move to a potentially more intriguing matchup, especially considering the beef that has gone on between these two teams this season, and specifically between Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren. It's the 4-seeded Pacers against the 5th-seeded Heat. And let's go to our resident Heat hater, Matt Hartman, to kick us.
Yeah, I guess you could say I'm a resident Heat hater. I've been able to watch a lot more Miami Heat basketball recently. As much as I don't like the Heat as much, I do think they're a good team. They have deep depth in their lineup, and they can shoot the ball. I have them winning in 6. The only reason 6, I think the little TJ Warren magic is still going to carry on into like the first or second game of the series, so they might win one in there. Oladipo's back pretty much fully healthy. Brogdon was looking good, but I do think the Heat overall can easily beat the Pacers. I think that Bam Adebayo is looking great. Definitely a candidate for most improved. I'd probably say he's second in that category behind Brandon Ingram. I do think that Duncan Robinson is a prolific shooter, definitely top 10, 15 in the league. I know Heat fans will say top 3. I think he's a great shooter. Tyler Hero's looking like a good rookie. Nunn looking like the second in Rookie of the Year voting. They got a great team. I don't know if Miles Turner can stop Bam Adebayo. Miles Turner's more of a true big. Adebayo's got that point forward style in him. I just think overall the Miami Heat experience and depth will help them in this series.
All right, Ethan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with you, Maddie. Don't need to go into all the specifics. A big Heat fan. I do see them coming out of this series in probably 6 games about. One thing that I do want to note, at least on the Indiana side, and I think this would be a completely different series and a completely different Indiana team had they had Domantas Sabonis, who was out pre-bubble with an injury, who actually just recently the Pacers have not ruled out a return to the playoffs yet for him. So there's still the off chance that he could make his return into the NBA bubble. So we'll see maybe if this Indiana team can go into the second round or even further. We'll see if they get Sabonis back. But like I alluded to before, I don't think this series is going to go more than 5 or 6 games in the favor of the Miami Heat.
Jason?
I'm going to have to agree as well. I mean, there hasn't been really much discussion about both sides. I mean, the Heat, I say, are taking it in 6. I think Jimmy's going to put the team on his back, you know. I don't think Jimmy's gonna lose to T.J. Warren or Oladipo. I mean, I think Oladipo is a great player. I really have liked his game ever since he was in Orlando, and I think maybe we may not be able to stop Oladipo, but I think the Heat have more weapons in terms of scoring. If one guy can't score, there's definitely other shooters. You got Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, even Jay Crowder, who's been shooting lights out from 3-point this bubble. I mean, there have been a lot of scorers. I mean, the Heat, yeah, they always have their third quarter woes, but they always seem to fight in the end and win. I mean, we kind of lost that second game to the Pacers mainly because we didn't play anybody. But I really do see the Heat making it to the second round.
I see all these games coming down to the fourth quarter. I mean, you have the 4 and the 5 seed. As much as people think the Heat are a very clear favorite, there's a reason these two teams were separated by one game throughout the season. They are evenly matched. I think the Heat overall, they got 2 stars, and they got Bam and Butler. They're both all-stars. I don't think T.J. Warren or Miles Turner have ascended to that second star next to Oladipo. Sabonis would have really helped. And the Heat, while they scared us a little bit with some injuries during the bubble, I think they're healthy. I think they get through, and I think they can pose a real threat to Milwaukee in the second round. I have the Heat going through in 5, but the group voted for Heat in 6. So Heat in 6 on the board. And speaking of 6, let's go to the 6-seeded 76ers taking on the 3rd-seeded Celtics. I know the Celtics were mentioned as a potential young up-and-coming team. Curtis, Alprez, what do you think is going to happen in this series?
Well, to be honest, and this is, I think, just a little bold prediction of mine, I think the 76ers are going to blow it up this offseason. I think it's going to start with an early round exit to the Celtics, and then obviously the Ben Simmons injury does not help their chances at all. Joel Embiid, obviously, back with the team right now, but it's not the same team without Ben Simmons controlling the ball and controlling the tempo for the Philadelphia 76ers. So whichever way that blow up ends up going, whether they decide to go Embiid or Simmons or neither, like I said, I think an early round exit to the Celtics is going to be the start of that.
Jason, what do you think?
I have the Celtics sweeping in 4. Without Ben Simmons, I really don't see any second star that the Sixers have to call upon if Embiid is not playing well or getting shut down or is in foul trouble. I think the Celtics will try and get Embiid in foul trouble to try and take him out of the game and swing it in their favor. I mean, you got Jason Tatum, who was shooting lights out before the bubble and is still the number 1 player on their team and just really leading the Celtics into the playoffs. Jaylen Brown is a great supporting player. Same with Marcus Smart. I mean, they just have a lot of really good guys surrounding Jason Tatum who complement him very well, and there's a lot of ball movement that I really don't see the Celtics losing the series at all, and I don't see them losing a game at all.
I'm going to chime in before we let Maddie harp on how great the young Celtics are. I think Joel Embiid is going to be by far the best player on the floor in this series. He can I could legitimately see him averaging 35 and 15 in this series, and the Celtics still will easily handle the Sixers. The depth from the Celtics, they're so well coached by Brad Stevens. The Sixers are going to get a game. It's going to, probably I'd say one of the first 2 games, and then the Sixers are going to just completely fall apart. Embiid will be the best player on the floor, and it won't even matter. So now, Maddie, you can tell us why the Celtics are so great and why they should be considered a threat, not only in this round, but to move on throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, so I mean, I have Boston in 5, but the only thing I don't think Embiid's going to be the best player on the court. I think it's going to easily be Kemba Walker. I think with no Simmons on the matchup, the point guard's already in his favor. He's had a little bit of experience in the league. He knows what it takes to run a team. No Simmons, no one to guard him. I don't think Embiid is amazing. I think Daniel Tice is one of the best young defenders in the league right now. He's looking really good in the bubble. I think he has an easily capable chance of actually guarding somewhat Embiid. I mean, Horford, Harris, both overplayed players that are just average. The team isn't that good without Ben Simmons. The Celtics are well balanced, very good team. They got a great defensive lineup that can shut down Embiid when needed. I don't see any struggle here for Boston.
Curtis, you have any response to that?
Similar reaction to Dan.
My only reaction was to the Daniel Tice comment, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think the Celtics are going to move on in the series, no problem. But when it comes down to it, I think Boston's biggest liability is going to be the front court when it comes down to when they have to play the Giannis, maybe the Miami Heat, maybe the Toronto Raptors. I don't see a combination of Daniel Tice and Enes Kanter guarding any of the East bigs. So that was
going off that. Let me just say, Embiid is frustrated easily. He's very emotional. I think that easily Kanter and Tice get in his head early on in the series is what I meant. I think Embiid's, yeah.
I mean, pure basketball-wise, I think Embiid, I agree with Klein more. I think he can and will be the best player on the court, but it won't matter at the end of the day.
We seem to be in a consensus here, and let's move on to the defending champs. They've been playing very well in the bubble. Toronto Raptors taking on a Brooklyn Nets team that surprised many people with their quality play in the bubble, considering how many of their key players are not there, not with the team. Do the Nets have a chance in this series, Jason?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, you got Pascal Siakam. Fred VanVleet has been playing very well right behind Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry is a different kind of animal, especially in the playoffs. I mean, he is feisty. He gets to the rim as well as spaces the floor pretty well. Pascal Siakam, when he's not in foul trouble, he's able to really put up the second chance points as well as to just be the leading scorer on the team. They got a lot of spacing on the floor with both Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, who can both shoot the three and also rebound and put it back in. I really don't see the Nets being able to guard all of them at the same time. So, I mean, they could focus on Siakam, they could focus on Lowry, they could focus on Gasol, whoever, but then someone else behind them is going to take up the scoring and really just end it. I also see the Raptors taking a sweep and winning 4-0. Also, Nick Nurse, I think is the coach of the year. He was the co-coach of the year in the coaches poll. He has been outstanding. And I commend what he's been able to do since Kawhi left and then still be the second seed in the East. I really didn't think that this team could really do that. And they've surprised me, and I really do think that they could go pretty far in the playoffs.
I just want to clarify. I believe Budenholzer and Donovan were co-coach of the year, and Nick Nurse finished one vote back. But he is my.
I thought it was Donovan and Nurse.
I believe
it was Budenholzer.
Was it Budenholzer?
Yeah, it was, but I think that's just coach's poll.
Nurse, it's my vote for coach of the year. I think they have a better record win percentage wise than they did last year with Kawhi. He's done such a good job of getting all of the other players who were considered the role players behind Kawhi to all take a step forward and basically like play as if Kawhi wasn't there. And I heard on ESPN, I can't remember the exact numbers. It was either 15-3 or 13-5 in games that they played last year without Kawhi. And then this year they've all improved. The Raptors, I think they have top to bottom the deepest roster in the East, and we'll see where that takes them in the playoffs as we go through the show. They got no problem with the Nets. Ethan?
Yeah, no disagreement here. I think the Nets are going to play the Raptors very close just because I think they've got some guys who really just want to fight. Shout out Chris Chiozza, former Florida Gator, starting point guard, getting some starts for the depleted Brooklyn Nets team. A guy like Karis LeVert for them, Joe Harris, just guys who I think will make this series, will make each game closer. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. I mean, the Raptors, top to bottom, one of the best teams in the league. They'll come away with it in either sweep or 5 games for sure.
Maddie?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what's been said. I really have to admit, though, the Brooklyn Nets, like, despite having such a shortened roster, they're going to be a threat in the next couple of years, they're without 4 of their top players. They're without Durant, Irving, DeAndre Jordan, and Spencer Dinwiddie, who was pretty much the leader before the bubble. You have guys stepping up that are either going to make bags next year at different teams or be great role players, like Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot. I think he had 20-something points in almost all the games. He looked really good. Rodion Kurucs, like a lot of foreign guys. Jarrett Allen looked like a decent center for this team. I mean, obviously, I think the Raptors are going to sweep, But Jacques Vaughn has done a great job given what he's had, and they looked really good. But Raptors are just that team. They well balanced, great coach. I just think they'll be able to win in 4 games. With I think Brooklyn will keep it close, like Ethan said, but Toronto should be able to win every game.
I think I will say though, the Nets next year when they get Kyrie and KD back, they're a top 3 team in the East. I mean, everybody else in the Nets that has been playing, they've been really stepping up, really just creating good basketball for this team, and I think they can go far next year.
I agree, but now let's move on to the West and arguably the most intriguing series of the first round. It's Dame time to talk about the Lakers against the Blazers. Blazers won their play-in game yesterday against Memphis, despite a career-high 35 points from Ja Morant. There was no need for a game today. Is this going to be a competitive series, Maddie?
Well, I have Phoenix winning 4. I mean, sorry, not Phoenix. Messing, but sad day. I do have the Lakers going in 5. Lillard showing why he's the MVP. He's looking great, but it's LeBron time. It's Bron time. You know, when Bron's in the playoffs, he is going to kill. Anthony Davis is out there. They got a good team. They're well rested. Portland's going to keep it close and score a bunch, but I just think they're no match for the king of the basketball.
Kurt Dog?
I agree with Maddie. I mean, I don't agree with Maddie too often, even though it might seem like that tonight. Yeah, I mean, I think the Blazers are going to be very competitive. I think Yusuf Nurkic and Hassan Whiteside, whichever combination that the Blazers decide to go with down low, I think it's just going to be totally outmatched by whatever presence and whatever Frank Vogel runs out between an Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee rotation. And then up top, where obviously LeBron, who's kind of just been a facilitator and floor general all year for the Lakers. And there's a reason why they're the number 1 seed. And I will say this, they have not been playing that great as of lately in the bubble, but there's a reason why they haven't been playing that great. And I think that's because LeBron has yet to enter playoff mode. And I think he's about to start doing that this coming Tuesday. And I really think he will shut down, he will put Dame time to a rest. But someone who I think is a little more confident in that, I think Jason would like to get a little more into that one.
I am a firm believer in Dame time. I see the Trailblazers winning in 6. I know it's crazy. I know that's hard to believe. You know, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, the King. I mean, I have 2 different views on this. You know, what I want, Blazers to win in 6. What I'm pretty sure will happen is the Lakers win in any amount of games, but I'm going to go with Blazers in 6 just because I love Damian Lillard. I love his play. I love his style, just like his passion for the game. Just Dame time is real. I mean, we've seen it in playoff series in the past. He's sent guys like Paul George home, Russell Westbrook home. I mean, it's when it comes down to like the final buzzer and the game is on the line, Dame comes up big. And I think if the Blazers can keep each game close, they can pull it out in the end for each game. But if the Lakers really go off on a big lead in the game and it's like a 20-point lead going into like towards the end of the third, that's a different story. But I mean, also a big story in this, Melo back into the playoffs. I think Melo's been on an upswing, and I think Melo could actually guard LeBron. I mean, not fully. LeBron's still going to go off, you know. But I like Melo. I've always liked Melo. And I think Melo can actually pull it together and actually really make an impact in the series. And you got CJ McCollum coming up behind Dame Lillard at the 2. And I think McCollum, if Dame is really getting really like blocked and like not able to score, I think McCollum can come up big. And then I think the biggest thing also is Yusuf Nurkic. Nurkic is a beast. I've always liked Nurkic's play. He's a big center, a traditional center. He crashes the boards, puts them back up on offensive rebounds. And I think he could really contend with Anthony Davis and keep Anthony Davis at bay. And so I see the Blazers winning. I see the Blazers winning in 6.
I will say Melo did hit a few clutch shots in that game against the Grizzlies, and CJ McCollum obviously big in that fourth quarter. So yeah, I mean, I definitely could see the Blazers coming away. I mean, it wouldn't be totally out of the realm of possibilities. So yeah, I see that for sure, Jason.
Let's not forget Gary Trent Jr. He's been sniping from three. So I mean, it'll be hard to see. I mean, I think in terms of like play style and how each team is going to play, I think the Blazers are really going to try and come out hot in three. And I think if the Lakers are unable to match that, I think the Blazers could be winning some games and hopefully the series for me. But yeah.
I can see this going either way. The Trailblazers made the Western Conference Finals last year.
Yeah.
They're a very good team. There's no lack of talent on this team, but there's more talent on the Lakers. So I think this is going to be a very competitive series. I actually believe I have the Blazers taking game one of this series, which is either going to do one of two things. It's going to wake the Lakers up, and they might go off and run off 4 straight. Or it could really give the Blazers a bunch of confidence to carry this series out. I have it going 7, and I think it's a complete coin flip when it gets to game 7. And when you flip a coin, it always comes up with LeBron's team on top. I'm picking the Lakers in 7. And now let's move on to who we think the Lakers are going to end up playing in the second round. The Rockets. And their small ball, shoot as many threes as you want against one of the surprise teams in the NBA this season, Billy Donovan, former Florida Gator coach, and his Oklahoma City Thunder. Maddie, what do you think is going to happen in this series?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a back and forth series. I think Harden's obviously going to continue what he's doing. It's going to be different to see how long Westbrook is out. I don't really know the timetable. But Oklahoma City looks great right now. They got a rising star in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's literally of the future, like next Chris Paul, I think. Great passer, can score the ball. Chris Paul's a great veteran leader. And a big thing I was surprised, I thought my vote for most improved player in the bubble was actually going to be Darius Bazley, the rookie. He really wasn't playing that much this season. In the bubble, he got a ton of action, can shoot the 3. He's like a stretch 4. I see him as like obviously not as good, but like a little bit of a version of Kevin Durant, can space the floor out, can pass the ball. And I think the big thing here where the Thunder have an edge is the big man, Steven Adams. I mean, he's one of the scariest guys in the league. No one wants to guard him. He's a big man, and I don't know if Covington – I mean, I love P.J. Tucker, his defense. I don't know if they can handle Steven Adams for a full series. I have the Thunder winning in 7. I think Harden's probably going to average over 40 in the series and probably have a couple 150-point total scores by one of the teams at one point. But I think the overall depth and hot streak the Thunder's on is going to help them win the first round.
I don't think they can match up with Steven Adams for a quarter of a game, nonetheless the whole series. I have the Thunder in 7 also. Harden is going to single-handedly win a couple games for the Rockets. But the Thunder I think, are too much for them. Their depth and their size see them through in a game 7. Jason?
I will say one thing. I do agree with you guys. I have Thunder in 7, but no one's really said Russell Westbrook. He's a big impact player, a difference maker in these games. I don't think Chris Paul can really shut down Russell Westbrook, given the age difference and just like the athleticism of Westbrook. I think Westbrook will really make a difference in the series, but I think it all falls down to the big man. I think Steven Adams is really just going to punish the Rockets for playing the small ball. I don't think that Harden and Westbrook can really keep up the scoring when you've got a guy like Adams who's just rebounding every single rebound because they don't have anybody tall to combat him, and just either getting offensive rebounds from missed Oklahoma City shots and putting them back up, or getting defensive rebounds from those threes that do miss. It's not like the Rockets make every single 3, and really pushing the ball down the floor in order to get the Thunder more points. I see Chris Paul really taking things into his own hand. He is such a good floor general and just making sure everyone's in the right place and really moving the ball around. He doesn't have to score a lot of points for the Thunder to put up points. You know, you got people like Steven Adams down low, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and guys who can really facilitate the ball and really put up points when they need to. And I think the biggest thing for the Thunder to do to win is defense. I think if you can shut down the Rockets shooting at the 3-point line, they can win the game, and that's why I see them winning in 7.
I just want to say Westbrook is officially out for at least game 1. So
there's one game for the Thunder.
So I would hope one game for Thunder. Also, you got to my watch out player for this series is going to be Lou Dort. young guy out of ASU. He's really good at defense. Obviously I don't see him shutting down Harden, but it's going to be good to see a matchup with a good defender like him playing against one of the best in the league.
Could the Rockets employ Tyson Chandler also? He just kind of sits on the bench.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing I was going to say, and I'm amazed at this every time, and to be honest, I don't think it matters if the Rockets usually don't have a player taller than 6'8" on the floor, because to be frank, they still get the job done when it comes to scoring the ball. And I think the big difference in this series, as Jason kind of said before, and Maddie just pointed out, certainly for game one, is going to be Russell Westbrook. As much as Harden is their main guy, he, at the end of the day, becomes the floor general for the Houston Rockets, whether it is dishing it out to Harden or driving it in and then kicking it out for a three-pointer that the Rockets love to do so much. So not having him is, I think, going to be the biggest difference in the series instead of actually not having a big man when it comes down to it.
I think we're all in agreement here with the Thunder. Let's move on to, I think, a very intriguing series. You've got two teams that might not be talked about as much, but they're no less talented than any other team, the Nuggets and the Jazz. I'll kick us off with this one. I have the Nuggets winning in 6 games. I think Nikola Jokic the new skinny Jokic, they're beginning to get their players back. Jamal Murray is returning. Michael Porter Jr., he is a candidate for most improved player in the bubble if they're the award that Maddie so kindly made up for us.
I think he got it. I think he actually got it.
I didn't know that actually was an award.
Yeah, you're telling you, that's what I'm saying. I think I have to go pick up the bubble awards too. No, I'm just kidding.
I've got the Nuggets. The lack of Mike Conley for at least a couple games gonna really hurt the Jazz, because I think that was an area where they could have an advantage against a depleted Denver backcourt. Now, not so much. I've got the Nuggets in 6. Ethan?
Yeah, I think the Jokic versus Gobert matchup is going to be a great one to watch. I'm going to give the edge to skinny Jokic just for the sheer I just think the offense really does run through him. I think, and you alluded to it, Michael Porter Jr., Bol has kind of almost come out of nowhere recently and played really well. And even if the Nuggets are able to make it past this round, and even in this series in itself, they could get better as the series goes on. And what I mean by that is maybe they get Gary Harris back. Maybe they get Will Barton back. They just recently got Jamal Murray back, who was a big addition, who wasn't with them at the beginning of the bubble. So you never know with the Nuggets, especially if they get better as a team as the series goes on.
Jason?
I think the biggest key difference here is the disappearance of Mike Conley, lack of Mike Conley for the Jazz. I think he really would have kept the series close. And without him for 1, 2, maybe even 3 games, I think the Nuggets will capitalize. I am a big fan of Jokic. I'm always a big fan of big men who can both have a strong post game, but also shoot the ball really well from mid-range and even the 3-point line. So Jokic, I think, is the big difference maker here. Yeah, you got Rudy Gobert on the Jazz, who multiple defensive player of the year. He's a big rebounder, big dunker, but I don't see him being able to guard Jokic in the mid-range. That was evident in their game, that what was it, triple overtime game between the Nuggets and the Jazz. I think the one thing that the Jazz could help them in the end is Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell goes off like he did in that multiple overtime game, the Jazz could pull out, but I have the Nuggets in 5 because I don't see the Jazz really being able to stop both Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., who's been insane in the bubble. Glad to see him healthy and back to full strength. And with the addition of Jamal Murray back to the lineup, I think the Nuggets are very well-rounded, and I see them taking it in 5.
All right, Maddie, close out this series for us.
Yeah, so before I knew Mike Conley was out, I had the Nuggets in 6. Now I have the Nuggets in 5. The big thing I see, the Jazz are a good team. I mean, without 2 starters and Bogdanovich as well, and Conley for at least a couple games. The big thing I see, though, for the advantage for the Nuggets is their defense. They have someone that can stop Donovan Mitchell in Torrey Craig, I believe, and even Jamal Murray. They have Jeremy Grant that comes off the bench. Paul Millsap and Jokic are decent at defense. I mean, if they can shut down Gobert in the paint, which I think they can, then there's really no stopping them. The one thing I'm surprised to see is Jordan Clarkson's probably going to get the starting role, and he shoots a lot. He's a great scorer. I'm surprised to see how he can take the ball up for a team in the playoffs and see what he can do. But I think the Jazz, well coached, well balanced team, got depth. They'll be able to win this round.
So you have the Jazz.
No, I have Denver in 5. I said I originally had Denver in 6, but
Okay.
no Conley, so Denver in 5.
All right. So, sorry for the confusion. Now let's move on to the last series of the first round. The Clippers, with their dynamic duo of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, going up against the 7th-seeded Mavericks and their dynamic duo of Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis. Ethan, you want to kick us off with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Clippers showed that at full strength, they are definitely one of the best teams in the NBA. I mean, everybody knew this, but it's definitely a different sight when they are at full strength. And I think they're just going to come out guns a-blazing when it comes down to the playoffs. I think I think Paul George and Kawhi are just going to be too much for the young Mavericks team, which I think have an outstanding future ahead of them. I just don't think this is their year.
Jason?
As much as I love Luka Doncic and his play, I'm going to have to take the Clippers in 6. I think the Mavs are just missing one more piece to really put them over the edge and be a really competitive team in the Western Conference. I don't really see how Luka can defend both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard at the same time, and I don't see Kristaps Porzingis defending either of them. So there really isn't anybody else on the Mavs who can help out Luka in terms of the smaller forwards and keeping Kawhi and Paul George both at bay at the same time. And I see the Clippers really just handling the Mavs pretty easily in 6 games. I think Luka can put the team on his back maybe for 2 games and really take it to 6. But I see the Clippers winning in the end.
I definitely think this is the Clippers playoffs year. I think they're going to make a big run. They got Kawhi. They got 2 superstars, Kawhi and Paul George. Luka will average a triple-double. He's going to look really good, but I don't know if he can carry a team by himself. We all know that Kristaps Porzingis can be really streaky at times. They have scorers like Hardaway, but they're also missing a true point guard. You know, I know Jalen Brunson is in there, but I mean, JJ Barea coming off the bench isn't going to help them at all when it comes to guarding Lou Will and Pat Beverly. They got
Magic
Morris
City.
brothers. I mean, Zubac is played very well in the bubble. I mean, obviously he's not one of the better centers, but he can get you 15 and 10 a game and definitely lock down Porzingis and probably Maxi Kleber off the bench. It'll be fun to see Boban against his former team. He might get some action in there, but I see no problem for the Clippers in this series. I have him in 5.
Who I think is going to be great down low as well, who's been great all year.
Montrezl Harrell, is he coming back? I didn't know that.
Also, Marcus Morris has been a great scorer for the Clippers off the bench. So, yeah.
If
Is Harrell coming back?
Zubac, however you pronounce it.
I think the Mavericks are actually, on paper, 3rd most talented team in the West, behind the 2 LA teams. And what do you know? They're running into one of those LA teams in the first round. I think this is going to be the most exciting series of the first round because I think this is the most collection of talent that's going to be on the court at the same time. I would have said that for Celtics Sixers if Ben Simmons was on the court, but he's not. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring series. I have it going 6 games with the Clippers pulling it out, but I think you're going to learn a lot about a young Dallas team that is trending absolutely in the right direction, and I expect big things from them next year. Now let's hop back over to the East for the series that everyone has seemed that all of Miami has been waiting for this whole season. Second round, Heat, Bucks. Jason, you're giving us a big smile. Why are you smiling, Jason?
The Bucks' kryptonite are the Miami Heat. I know the Heat lost to the Bucks in the bubble. Yeah. But we beat them twice in the regular season. I think when it comes to playoffs, all the Bucks have really are Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And there really isn't anybody else who can help them in case they're stuck in foul trouble or just not really being able to put the ball through the net. And I really do think that the Heat have such depth that when it comes to the second rotation, and you got the bench players off the Heat versus the bench players off the Bucks, the Heat are going to win that battle, bring the games close. I do see each game being a fourth quarter battle because you got those third quarters for the Heat. I really just, I don't know what it is. Maybe we're cursed or something. We've never been able to play well in the third quarter. I can't explain it at all, but I see the Heat really winning this series. I see them taking it 4-2, 6 games, and Jimmy, Bam, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic. I mean, Goran Dragic is easily one of the top contenders for Sixth Man of the Year in my book. I mean, when you have such depth and such ability to move players around and put them in different positions, because you got Bam playing either center or power forward with Kelly Olynyk up there as well. I mean, I don't see how the Bucks could really win the series and win all 4 games.
Maddie, you look absolutely disgusted by that take.
the in-house Heat hater.
Go ahead.
I've known Heat fans pretty much half my life. It's very hard to talk basketball with them. I grew up with Heat fans, and especially during the time where the Suns were on the decline, and then LeBron came. It's just hard to agree with Heat fans based on this because I could say the same thing about the Suns playing the Lakers. They got this depth of the lineup that can definitely guard, but there's Budenholzer's coach of the year for a reason. They're the number 1 seed for a reason. It's not just because Giannis. They have the best team in the league. They got Middleton, who's an all-star. They have a center who's prolific and has had a great career in Brook Lopez. They have veteran point guards in Eric Bledsoe and George Hill. They have a bench lineup that can consist of Marvin Williams, who's had experience in the playoffs. They have Dante DiVincenzo, who's a lockdown defender. I just don't see Miami having a chance, especially with their second half history. I know we can all agree on that. Third quarters are not for Miami. Bucks are going to be able to thrive. I have the Bucks winning in 5, but that's probably an unpopular opinion right there.
Bucks in 5 seems very bold. I think George Hill, Heat killer. Ersan Ilyasova, Heat killer. There's these random guys that just kill the Heat. And I love the Heat. This team they're 1 piece away from from contending for a title. And to contend for a title, you got to be able to beat Milwaukee. They're not going to do it. I think the Heat are going to take a 3-2 lead in this series and break Miami fans' hearts, losing in 7. Curtis, we got 3 different opinions here. Where do you fall on the spectrum?
I mean, if I'm one of those let's go Heat guys, and then I'll be a diehard till I die. But at the end of the day, I just think Milwaukee is too much for Miami. One thing that I don't think people love to talk about, and Jason made a great point. Yeah, the Heat are the only team to beat the Bucks multiple times this season. But let's look at those games. The first time, and there was no Jimmy Butler. That was the second game of the NBA season. What was that, like 6-7 months ago to this point? I don't even think that even counts. The second time,
yeah,
right, exactly. The second time we beat Milwaukee, they were coming off a back-to-back, and Giannis had his worst game of the season. Of course, they were coming off a back-to-back on the road. I mean, it's hard to play in conditions like that in Miami when there were fans. That's not going to be the same.
I was at that game.
I mean, I was too, and it was a fantastic ball game, especially seeing. But let's look at that ball game. How did the Heat win? They defended Giannis and they shot lights out of the 3-ball. They're going to have to defend Giannis when Giannis is way more rested. And if you look at the way the Heat have been shooting the ball the last few games, it's not been particularly pretty. So, I mean, for lots of reasons, I mean, I'm pulling for the Heat, but let's bring our expectations back down to earth a little bit.
I don't know. I'm a dreamer. I love my Heat too much. I mean, this is honestly what I would say is the first season in a while, and ever since LeBron left, where I'm really optimistic about the Heat, and I really think the difference maker is the bench, and I think if the bench can beat Milwaukee's bench, and I do believe that our starting lineup can hold Giannis to reasonable numbers. I still think Giannis can put up 30 plus points, but I think that if our bench can outscore their bench, and we can, and our starting players can just keep it steady, I think the Heat can pull out wins.
Right, as a group, we're moving the Bucks along, but there's
If the Heat are up 3-2 and they lose that series, it's gonna be a brutal day.
but that we're breaking
It'll be a
Heat.
great day for me.
All right, let's move on to another series that I think that we're going to have some disagreements on. We've got Maddie's new favorite team now that the Suns and the team that I think the other three of us agree have the coach of the year in Nick Nurse. So, Maddie, go keep talking about the Celtics. Go for it.
Well, yeah, I would say they're my favorite team in the playoffs right now. Obviously, I like the Thunder as well, but Thunder have more competition right now. The Celtics are looking great. I'm gonna probably be the only one in this group that says this. I have Boston winning in 7. As a group, though, we did agree that Toronto was probably going to win. But listen, Boston is ready. They're coming. They got that full lineup. I've talked about how they're going to easily beat Philadelphia. I think they can do it with Toronto. I think it's going to be a competition. But I think that the the overpower of Brown, Tatum, and Walker is going to be superior to that of Siakam, Van Fleet, and Lowry. I just think the young guys are going to get the battle here. The experience will help the Raptors and get them a couple games. But overall, I think Boston's going to take this series and shock you three and also shock some of the NBA world as well.
All right. I think the three of us all have the Raptors. Jason, do you want to give us why you think the Raptors are going to move on?
This goes back to my argument against the Nets. The Raptors, they have a lot of players who can pick up slack if someone is slacking, and I don't see how the Celtics can defend both Gasol and Serge Ibaka. All they really have is Daniel Tice, who's 6'10", Serge Ibaka 7 foot and playing at the 4. So I see Siakam really giving Tatum a run for his money defensively. I think Siakam can really limit Tatum as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble and nobody gets in foul trouble, And I see the Raptors winning it in 6. I think the Celtics will take 2 games, It'll be a competitive series. But, when it comes to playoffs, Kyle Lowry is always big, shooting threes, driving the ball inside, dishing it out. He's just a tried and true floor general who can really create opportunities for the Raptors. And yes, you got Kemba Walker on the other side who can do the same thing, but he's also been kind of slow in the bubble. He came off injury, had a minutes restriction. I know he's back to full health and everything like that, but you can only do so much when it comes to matchups. And I think Lowry can match up with Kemba. I think Pascal Siakam can match up with Tatum. I don't know about who can really match up with Jaylen Brown, but I do see there not being really any matchup between Ibaka and Gasol versus Tice and whoever else the Celtics have.
Enes Kanter.
Enes Kanter, but he's coming off the bench. He's not playing. He's not starting.
So is Ibaka's not a starter either. He's embraced the role of 6 man in Toronto.
6 man. Okay, whatever.
He is a top 5 favorite player of mine. Serge Ibaka, fun fact. But
Serge
I
Ibaka.
digress.
6. And I think this is the matchup of the 2 best coaches in the NBA, which is, I
Not
think,
Spo.
another layer that don't get me started.
Yeah, shout out to Brad Stevens. He just got a huge reported extension with the Celtics. I know Danny H commented he wants Brad Stevens to be a Celtic for life. I don't think this is the year for the Celtics. I think we've kind of talked about a few teams who are a piece away. I think the Celtics are a big man piece away from really getting to that next step. And just to
Chicago Fall.
And and just going down to when you look at the matchups, I don't think the front court of the Celtics will compete even nearly as much with that of the Raptors. And when you look at the Celtics, yeah, they've got great wing players like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but I think guys like Powell and guys like Og Anunoby, I think those are guys that can actually run with the Celtics and actually.
G, not Og.
Excuse
me. Wait, did you say Powell though?
What? Powell?
Did you say
Norman?
Powell?
Norman Powell.
Oh, Powell. They said Powell, like Powell Gasol, and I'm like, wrong brother.
No, guys like Norman. I think those are strong wing guys who can run with the Celtics, and I just think the front court's going to be the huge difference.
Sorry, OG. That's my go Hoosiers. But
OG.
oh, let's move on to the West semifinals. We've got the Lakers, who, after some debate, we moved on to face the Thunder, who we seem to pretty unanimously move on. Any debate that the Lakers move on through this series, Jason? You had the Blazers, so
And I had the Blazers winning it, and I have the Blazers beating the Thunder in 7. But when it comes to the Lakers, I think the Lakers can easily handle the Thunder. I mean, you got playoff Braun. Anthony Davis can finally prove himself in the playoffs, and really, I think Anthony Davis has the most on the line in this playoffs. You know, I mean, he's finally on a team with better surrounding players, with our superstar who can take the pressure off of him, and he finally has a chance to really go far and win a finals trophy. So I think the Lakers are gonna handle the Thunder pretty easily. I see it being a 5-game series.
Maddie, any disagreements?
I mean, I think the Lakers are going to be winning 4. I just think still LeBron's time. He's not going to stop in this series. I don't think the young Thunder is going to be able to match up with him or Davis, along with their veteran leadership. Should be a quick series. Don't really got much else to say on that.
Curtis, you agree? Quick series?
Yeah, I think LeBron's championship timer, his clock is running real low. I think this could be his last season. So I think he's really going to show us why this postseason. And yeah.
You think LeBron could retire after this season?
No. I didn't say that. I think his championship timer.
Clarifying. I think we're all on the same page. Short series. Lakers going to move on. Who are they going to face? We've got the Nuggets against the Clippers. We seemed pretty confident that both those teams were going to advance to this round. Who do you have going to the conference finals, Maddie?
I got Battle of LA coming. I think Kawhi and Paul George are going to continue their hot stretch against Dallas and take on the Denver Nuggets. I think they'll win in 5. I think Jokic will be pretty hard to guard, though. I think he can easily match up with Zubac and Harrell if he comes back. But I just think overall the star power between George and Leonard is just going to be too much. I do think, though, that the Nuggets within 2 to 3 years will be a Western Conference champion and be in the NBA Finals. But this year, it's got to be Battle of LA.
Jason?
I'd have to agree. Clippers, I don't really see there being anybody on the Nuggets who, other than like Michael Porter Jr., who's pretty good at defending. I don't really see how they can match up with Kawhi and PG. But then again, I don't see how the Clippers can match up with Jokic. So, I mean, each team has favorable matchups, but I think Kawhi and PG overpower Jokic and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. And I see the Clippers winning it in 5, in 4-1 Clippers.
I agree. Clippers, 5 games. That seems to be the consensus here. I think star power in the playoffs always comes to the front, and the 2 best players on the court are both on the Clippers. Battle of LA. Curtis, clean sweep for the Clippers?
Yeah, and just because I know we kind of briefly mentioned it when we were talking about the Clippers last series, Montrezl Harrell, who is actually eligible to return for Game 1, he's actually cleared quarantine, so he should be good to go for that series, and that's just going to be another big piece that the Clippers are going to have going for them down the stretch.
Look at Curtis with these updates right from the bubble. What would we do without him? Let's move right on. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Conference finals, shifting back to the East. We've got the Bucks, who we sadly, for some of us, moved on, against the Raptors, who, again, for some of us, we sadly moved on. Who's going to be representing the East? Maddie, since you have the Celtics, they're not here. What do you think is going to happen if the Raptors end up playing the Bucks?
Yeah, so I originally had Bucks Celtics. I think the Celtics are going to win in 7, but Raptors are here. I have to give it some thought. I know as a group we came to an agreement, but I could see this one being back and forth. I do think, though, that the experience within the Raptors should help them go back to the finals. I think Siakam will thrive in this series, getting a lot of exposure and getting to show why he could be a top player. I think he'll not dominate, but I think he'll put up great numbers against Giannis. I think this team as a whole be able to match up with the Bucks. Obviously, if the Heat were there, it'd be a different story, of course. But I do see the Raptors representing the Eastern Conference in the finals this year.
Curtis,
Other than the Celtics, of course.
seem to be nodding in agreement.
No, I was actually nodding in disagreement. Sorry if I gave a false nod. I don't think the Raptors will actually will be able to match up with the Bucks. I think when it comes down to it, I think we talked about it. Star players shines when it comes to the playoffs, and I think in a matchup of the Bucks versus the Raptors, I think Giannis really dominates that. Raptors have not really shown any signs of being able to slow down Giannis this season. Not saying that they don't have the guys to do so. They just haven't done so yet. And I think in a playoff series between the Bucks and the Raptors, Bucks will take that one in a close series.
I went with the Raptors here. As you can tell, I've been very high on the Raptors this season. I think what they've done is incredible. And I think that this is really going to be like the whole like shebang coming out party. Raptors in 6, I think they match up very well. You look at, Lowry and Van Vliet, they match up very well with the backcourt. I think the key to the series is the fact that Brook Lopez against so many players is a matchup nightmare. Not against Marc Gasol.
Right.
Marc Gasol, I think, is a very good matchup, and I think the combination of Ibaka's strength at times and Siakam's quickness at times, those two can rotate on Giannis, kind of make life difficult. They have 2 guys who I think can really match up with him. So they'll be able to be fresh in the fourth quarter when they're going to need Giannis the most and they're going to be asking the most out of Giannis. The Raptors are going to have an answer. And I think that's going to be the difference in this series. I think the Raptors are going to be a great fourth quarter team. Bud is a great coach, Mike Budenholzer. Nick Nurse, just a step above. And I think that's the difference in this series. Jason?
On your argument of Marc Gasol really quickly, he showed up to the NBA bubble in the best shape of his life. That's a crazy statement to make for a veteran guy who won the Defensive Player of the Year award, what it seems like 15 years ago to this point. So I think that's really saying something, and I agree with you, Alex. I think that's going to make a big difference in a potential series matchup.
Jason, we have 2 people moving the Raptors on. We got 1 moving the Bucks on. You want to settle this for us?
So, as you know, I really have the Heat against the Raptors. And in that series, I have the Raptors going forward. But for Bucks Raptors, I also have the Raptors going forward. To go off what you said, Klein, it's going to be a battle of coaching. I think Nick Nurse is the best coach in the league. I know Budenholzer was co-coach of the year in the coaches poll with Billy Donovan, but I think Nick Nurse is the better coach. I think in the end, it's going to come down to fourth quarter battles and who is fresher, who is going to have more energy and the ability to put the team on their back. And yes, Giannis. I don't think Giannis is going to be MVP for the league. I think it's LeBron. I think people have been sleeping on LeBron. But even for the former MVP, I know he can put the Bucks on his back. But I think there's too many people on the Raptors who can put the team on their back and also spread the weight around when it comes to the fourth quarter. I don't think it has to come down to just Siakam or just Lowry. I think there's a lot of players on the Raptors who can pull their weight in the fourth quarter and win these games, while I only see it being Giannis and Middleton even who can do that for the Bucks. And I think that's the difference maker in this series, and I see the Raptors coming out. It's going to be a tough series. I see this going to 7. I see it going to being a 7-game series, and I see there being some clutch shots in the end in favor of the Raptors.
All right, so we've got the Raptors representing the East in the NBA Finals. Moving out west, the highly anticipated Battle of LA. I'll start us off. I've said multiple times on this show, the Clippers match up so well with the Lakers because I think personally they have the front court depth, especially with Montrezl Harrell back, to control Anthony Davis. Not stop Anthony Davis, not shut Anthony Davis down, but to control Anthony Davis. And then you also have the ability to have both Kawhi and Paul George kind of share off on taking the load on guarding LeBron. I think that's a huge, huge advantage for the Clippers. And I also think that the depth in their backcourt, when you look at Williams, I think Beverly's back.
Yep, he is.
And then Avery Bradley, no.
No, he's not. That's on the Lakers, though.
I said yes, they match up better than Avery Bradley and if Rajon Rondo were to come back, which I still think is a possibility. I think the Clippers take this in 6. I've said it since the beginning of the bubble, and I'm sticking to it. Ethan?
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, a highly anticipated Battle of LA. One thing that I do, and you make a great point, it's about containing Anthony Davis and not stopping him in their matchup against in the first game back from the bubble between the Lakers and the Clippers. Anthony Davis did go for 34 in that game, but 16 of those were from the free throw line. So, I mean, that was a big thing. He did shoot 8 for 19 from the field. LeBron, 6 for 19 from the field in that game. So you made a great point. Defensively, the Clippers match up really well with the Lakers stars. And I think I'm in agreement with you, Klein. I think that'll be the difference at the end of the day in this matchup.
All right, Maddie?
Yeah, not much to add on. Just depends how great LeBron's going to play. I do think, though, the Clippers got it. I'm not much to say after what you guys have said. Pretty much agree with everything. I do see LeBron, though, really going hard in this series, but I have Clippers probably 6 or 7.
Jason, you in agreement?
So initially I was thinking Lakers, but then I remembered those lemon pepper wings from Magic City. Lou Will is going to be the difference maker in this series. I think him coming off the bench, there really isn't anybody off the bench for the Lakers who can really match with Lou Will at the 6th man. And I think that's going to be the difference maker here. It's just like being able to keep Kawhi and PG fresh and being able to let them sit, let them rest up during the game, because you've got guys like Lou Will and Pat Beverly coming off. Is Pat Beverly starting, or is he coming off the bench?
Beverly should be starting.
Right. Okay, but you got Marcus Morris coming off the bench. Assuming Montrezl Harrell, I think, is going to be starting if he gets back. And also a big thing has been Ivica Zubac. I can't remember how you pronounce the last name.
Zubac.
Ivica Zubac. He's been playing very well for the Clippers and recently in this bubble. So I mean, I think he could be him and either Marcus Morris or Montrezl Harrell. Like, they both can share the load for Anthony Davis, and then PG and Kawhi sharing the load for LeBron. I think that's going to be the big thing.
All right, so we have reached the finals. We've got the North, the defending champs, the Raptors, against the other LA team, the Clippers.
Can I say one thing?
Okay.
I think it's really sad and is kind of just ironic that the one time recently that we have the Battle of LA in the playoffs, it's not going to be in LA. You know, it's not going to be that shift in fans if there is one. It would have been so interesting to see a 7-game series, because I do think it's going to go in 7 games. Whether is there really going to be any home court advantage in LA? And now we don't even get to see that.
So we've got the finals. I want all of us to go around, give our prediction for the finals, and also throw in your finals MVP. And if you had a different team winning the finals, Maddie, you can share who you thought was going to be the finals MVP. Maddie, why don't you go ahead and get your Celtics.
So my Clippers Boston finals, as you might know, I have the Clippers winning in 5. Kawhi's going to be the MVP. Not much else to say. Kawhi's going to get his 3rd ring with a 3rd different team, solidifying that he's potentially going to be a top 10 player of all time. That's my bold prediction, but Clippers should easily win.
Even against the Raptors? You had Clippers, Raptors, still Clippers?
Oh, yeah. I'd have Clippers in 5 in both Raptors and Boston.
All right, Jason, winner and finals MVP?
As much as I like the Raptors and their young squad and just their ability to step up without Kawhi, I have the Clippers winning it all. I have them winning in 5. I don't really see the Raptors can stop both PG and Kawhi at the same time. And I actually have PG being the MVP of the finals. I think PG is playoff Paul. He comes in clutch when he needs to. I think Kawhi is a very steady scorer and a very steady defender, but I think PG is the guy when they need someone to shoot the ball to win the game. I think PG is the guy, and I think PG is going to really show why that I think it's going to be like kind of like that moment that he's been waiting for to prove like he is back, from the devastating leg injury, back to like his level of play, which was pretty good in Indiana. And like, yeah, he played very well for OKC. But I really do see the Clippers winning it and PG being the MVP.
So last year, I doubted the Raptors. They proved me wrong. This year, I'm doubting the Raptors again, especially without Kawhi. He's playing for the other team now. Clippers in 6. And I agree with Jason. Paul George, I think, is going to be the finals MVP. You see Kawhi, kind of steady. And we've seen this with voters. We saw it happen with regular season MVP. They kind of got tired of giving it to LeBron. I think if Paul George has like a half-decent series and they win, I see them giving it to Paul George. So Clippers winning, Paul George, my finals MVP. Curtis, close us out.
Well, I really thought I was going to be the outlier. I mean, not the outlier in saying the Clippers are going to win, but I thought I was going to be the outlier in calling Paul George the MVP. I mean, I'm not going to get too much into it. You guys did enough explaining for me, but I will say I've got the Clippers over the Bucks instead, as I've got the Bucks advancing out of the East. And I've got this one in a 6-game series. Championship back to LA, this time in the hands of the Clippers.
All right, so that's our NBA playoff preview. But before we finish, we're going to close out like we do every show, where all of us are going to go around and share one sports story that is meaningful to us. And I'm actually going to start by shouting out Florida's very own Reinhardt Harrison. He's going to be a rising junior at Nice High School. And last night at the Music City Distance Carnival in Nashville, Tennessee, he ran against a bunch of professional athletes in the mile, including Mason Froelich, the former NCAA champion steeplechaser, who represented Team USA at the World Cross Country Championships, and he shattered the Florida State record in the mile and the sophomore national record in the mile. He ran 4:01 in the mile, ridiculously fast. The guy who previously held that record, Samuel Vasquez, represented Puerto Rico in the Olympics in 2012. Reinhardt Harrison broke that record by 2 seconds. There is so much potential for him. I got to watch him race last year at Florida Relays. He ran 4:13 and narrowly lost to Hugh Brittingham, who finished 9th in the SEC mile as a freshman. Huge things coming from Reinhardt Harrison. He's coached by the same guy who coaches Drew Hunter, who is a breakout high school star. With 2 years left in high school, I certainly expect him to go under 4 minutes in the mile, something very few high schoolers have achieved. And maybe, just maybe, Alan Webb's high school record of 3:53 is in danger. Big shout out, Reinhardt Harrison going to the same high school Tim Tebow went to. Another Gator. So that
is there a likelihood that he's going to be coming to Florida?
If I had to guess, he's going to turn pro straight out of high school. That's just my guess. Don't know him, but if you're running those kind of times, you're going to be getting a fat check presented in front of you when you are eligible. Jason, since you asked the question, why don't you go ahead and share your story with us?
So as you guys all know, I am a staunch Buffalo Bills supporter. # Bills Mafia. Bills Mafia, baby. Breaking tables, all that jazz. I'm excited for football. I know it's going to be weird, COVID and all that stuff. It'll be interesting to see. But my story is the Buffalo Bills. They're going to be coming out of the AFC East #1. I'm telling you, I'm calling it now. Bills, AFC East division winners. I think the only contenders possible would be the Patriots, but they already lost like half their defense. Maybe Cam Newton can pull it out of his ass somehow, but I don't think Tua is going to be starting for the Dolphins right away. And I think those games where he's not starting and they're probably going to be losing, I think that's going to be the difference here. And I think the Bills, I mean, there was a scare that like Trey White was gonna opt out, but he is not. I think the Bills are the team to beat in the AFC East, and I do think there will be playoff football in Buffalo.
All right.
For the first time since '95.
That is something that us would want to see because we would never hear the end of it. All right. Jason, thank you for that. Ethan, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, last time I was on the show, I talked about baseball, and this time I'm going to do the same thing. But this time we're going to talk about really briefly the race to 400. I mean, it was a big subject preseason whether there would be any players who could actually hit 400 for this shortened season. Obviously, only 60 games, but it's still pretty incredible feat if you were to ask me. And some guys at the top of the list that haven't even played baseball in multiple years. Obviously, you've got Charlie Blackmon of the Rockies leading the way, hitting 438. But one guy who's currently second on the list for the San Francisco Giants, the former Florida Marlin, Donovan Solano, currently hitting 433. He hasn't played in the MLB for 3 years, so I think that's pretty impressive. DJ LeMahieu for the Yankees hitting a nice 411. Jose Iglesias for the Baltimore Orioles, who are a surprising 12-8 out of the gates, hitting 400, and Jesse Winker for the Cincinnati Reds hitting 365. So again, a big storyline was if somebody would be able to hit that 400 mark. We've got a couple guys there right now. Let's see if they are able to finish the season strong and stay above there.
Curtis.
Thumb injury though, so that's big sad for us Yankee fans.
Curtis, I gotta ask, who do you have winning? Who do you have making it to the World Series?
I mean, we're still a long way from that, and obviously, a regular MLB playoffs is a random World Series generator. Basically, I think with an expanded playoffs, that's going to be even more the case this year. But it's kind of hard to bet, and it's kind of hard to say anything right now other than Yankees Dodgers. If I'm given a pretty rough off the surface guess.
All right, Maddie, you want to close us out with your story?
Yeah, I don't know about time constraints or not, but I did do a little bit of a mock draft here for the upcoming NBA draft, which should be around October area. What I did was I didn't make any lottery odds. I just made it that if it was today with the records, just kind of did a quick 14-player draft order, maybe a little point on each bow. So I'll just go pretty quickly if you don't mind. We got the Warriors getting the first pick, and I think they're going to select Anthony Edwards out of Georgia. I know people would think Wiseman could be number one, but I've read some articles that if Golden State gets number one, it looks like Anthony Edwards will be getting taken. Probably the best player in the draft. Can add some depth behind Thompson and Green for the first couple of years, and when Green's probably gone soon, I would say that Edwards would be a good pick. Then we got Cleveland at number two. Then I think they take James Wiseman, especially with the uncertainty with Drummond. I think he has 1 year left, and it's a player option. Wiseman's got to be the next center up for this team. Cleveland needs help quick. They've definitely went downhill since LeBron. Following that, Minnesota, I think they get another offensive threat in Obi Toppin. Obviously, this could be a rare pick because Minnesota's in need of defense. But I want to see how Towns, Toppin, and Russell start off the season next year. Next at 4. Oh, yeah, and also if you guys disagree or anything, feel free to interrupt. Number 4 should be a fun one for all of us. I have the Hawks taking possibly Luka Doncic 2.0 and Denny Avdija from Israel. I watched a couple of highlight films of him recently. He looks really good. I do think he could be a big threat in the NBA, possibly in between a Porzingis Doncic kind of player. Definitely see him with Trae Young matching up really well. Number 5, I got Detroit Pistons selecting LaMelo Ball. I'm not really high on LaMelo Ball. I'm not really high on the Ball family at all. I know he has a bunch of recognition, but I don't know, going to Detroit, I don't know if his daddy's going to like that, but also I just don't know if LaMelo Ball is going to be a great fit. But I see him in Detroit with a old age Derrick Rose to help lead him in the way. New York Knicks, I have them selecting Cole Anthony. They need a big-time player to compensate with Mitchell Robinson and RJ Barrett. I think Anthony's a prolific passer. He can play ball really well, has basketball in his genes. I think he and Mitchell Robinson could be a good dynamic duo, but I don't see the Knicks winning anytime soon. Chicago Bulls are up. I think they are in need of a big man. I have them selecting Onyeka Okongwu out of USC. I think he's a dark horse of this draft. I think he's going to be a great defender, great overall player, can rebound the ball.
I've been seeing him shoot up draft boards recently. So, yeah.
I think he'll be a top 10 pick for sure. Then number 8, I got the Hornets. I know they have Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham, but uncertainty there. I have them taking a point guard just to be safe. I have them taking RJ Hampton out of Australia. I think Rozier is getting a little past his prime, which was a little stint with the great team Celtics. Devontae Graham only has 1 or 2 years left, and he's probably going to ask for a bigger contract. So I have RJ Hampton taking the reins for Michael Jordan's team. Number 9, I got another foreign player getting taken, and it's to Washington. They took Rui last year. I think they'll take Killian Hayes this year. With Wall's injuries and the uncertainty there, I think they need a point guard to help with Beal and the emerging Hachimura. I think Killian Hayes can pass the ball well, score well, especially from the foreign players' luck recently. I think he'll be good. Then the 10th pick with the great old Phoenix Suns. Obviously, they don't need much because of their great performance, but I have them taking Devin Vassell out of Florida State. Vassell was a scorer, but he's also really good at defense, and the Suns definitely need some defense at the 2 guards back up Booker, because Booker is not the best defender, might I say. Bridges will be there to Mannion. I do not have going. If I have Mannion in this draft, I'm going 22nd to Miami. I just don't. Mannion has been slipping. I don't know. I love Nico, known him since high school. I don't think it was wise for him to declare for this year. I think his stock definitely went down. But Devin Vassell for Phoenix should be a good fit. Quickly for the last couple picks, I got Isaac Okoro, big man, who's going to replace DeMarcus Aldridge in the Spurs the next couple of years. New Orleans with Drew Holiday and Lonzo Ball. I think they're going to have another guard in Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State. He looks really good. I would not be mad if the Suns took him at 10. Sacramento needs some scoring. I have them taking Nesmith out of Vanderbilt. He's averaged 24 last year. I think he's a hit or miss guy, but I think the Kings need a big scorer. I don't know if Harry Giles and the Nemanja Bjelica is going to lead the way. And in the last pick, Boston gets Memphis's pick, and they're going to take another good defender out of a good college, Sadiq Bey from Villanova.
One thing that I just want to say, Maddie, and this is kind of, I guess, my bold prediction of the NBA draft, no matter where they end up, I see the Golden State Warriors going after Obi Toppin, because I think he really fits that scheme in terms of that stretch 4, and will just give the Warriors just another scoring option from anywhere on the court. And yeah, that's just where I see him ending up.
Oh, and I think Obi Toppin's a great player. The only thing Obi Toppin is not a good defender. And when I mean not good, like really not good, I do not think he plays defense at all. It's going to be a huge disadvantage for him. I think other rookies, I don't think he'll get rookie of the year or anything like that. But Obi Toppin can score, but he needs to thrive as a defender before he can even become close to being a good player.
Yeah, but I think his lateral quickness and his athleticism will allow his defense.
Oh, he'll be a great fit in Golden State as well, I think. But Edwards, number 1.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this little playoff preview. We'll see how we as a group did as we move through the playoffs, and we hope to see you next time on 638 Sport Talk. Thank you for watching.
Go Celtics.
Man.
Go Heat.
Bills suck.
Bills rule.
Oh, yeah. Klein, you can say that.
All right. Muffin Man 0523 going to be streaming on Twitch after this. If you're listening, watching, go ahead and hop on over. We're going to be hosting. I know I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Muffin Man 0523. We love you.
Let's support.
Go support.
Let's go.
Yo, Jason, wait, are we still recording?
Yeah.
All right, whatever. Not the point. Jason, do you know how matchups work in basketball?
Do I know how matchups work in basketball?
Yes, like
Yeah.
how defensive work in basketball.
Yeah.